It's time to get restless, ladies and gentlemen, as we're back on the Restless Show. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Father Joseph, and Javier's laughing like crazy over there. We got Paul, Javier, and Lauren with us today. And today we're going to talk about diving into your own parish. Because Christians are not meant to do this thing alone. You know, there's no lone wolves in Catholicism. And sometimes we can feel like we're a lone wolf. Like, I believe in Jesus, but I'm not supported by anybody around me. And I go to my parish and it seems like quiet and dead and sleepy. And so let's talk about that. And especially because I think young adults have a unique ability to kind of inject some life into a parish and some great ideas, fresh things that we're doing. So, first I'd like to hear, when you were growing up at your home parish, which I know Lauren grew up here at St. John's. That was her home parish, right?
Mine was St. Catherine's in Riverside.
Oh, St. Catherine's in Riverside. And of course, Paul and Javier had different parishes growing up. So what was your involvement in your own home parish growing up?
I was an altar boy.
I was an altar server.
Were you really?
Yes,
Nice.
for 5 years. And, I remember I had wanted to do it probably since I was in kindergarten because I found church boring. I don't know. I was like an energetic kid, right? And I was supposed to sit and be quiet. And I looked at the kids up on the altar, and I definitely wanted to do that, but I never said anything. And then when I was in fourth grade, I think my brother Brian said that he wanted to be an altar server. So it was all of a sudden, it was like, Brian's going to be an altar server. And I was like, wait a minute, I want to be an altar server. My parents were like, well, sure, you can too. So then I did that, and we both did it for 5 years. I did it through 8th grade.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I did it 9 years. So we couldn't do it until we were in 4th grade.
Okay.
So that's when I started. But I went to school. So I went to St. Bridget Church in Cheshire, Connecticut, and I went to St. Bridget School, which is about 30 feet from the church. And so, I think it was pretty, I guess growing up, we were pretty close to the church physically and figuratively. And I remember the best thing about being an altar server was that we got to serve funeral masses during the day. During the school day,
Get out of class.
which was great
cool.
to get out of class. And then sometimes, because Cheshire's kind of an upper middle class town, we'd also get paid to do funerals, which was kind of weird, but
That's
it was
awesome.
was pretty good to get paid.
Not
some
a
money.
bad deal.
Yeah, I didn't get an allowance or anything growing up, so that was that $10 was really special.
It goes far.
Yeah.
I also went to a Catholic school myself, and I served in the altar a couple times growing up, but I was very involved in the choir. I was in the choir ever since I was a little kid, and I also would help a lot setting up for big masses we had at school and stuff, and processions and whatnot. And I don't know if that had to do with being in the choir or not, but I was always asked to help with stuff. So
Nice. Now, most choirs, because I was in the choir as well growing up, and I think it was like 75 girls and 3 boys.
no, I went to an all-boys school.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so
it was 100% boys.
100% boys. There you go. Yeah, I definitely felt outnumbered.
Yeah.
Most masses. So, did you guys get involved in youth groups at all? When you were in
We
high
didn't
school,
have
middle
that.
school? No.
Yeah, didn't have it.
No.
I didn't have it either.
Wow.
They do now, actually.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, my church does. They have a part-time paid youth minister, too, which is really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Yeah.
That's one thing. I run our youth group here in Stamford, Connecticut, and I wish I had a paid youth minister. That'd make my life a lot easier. But so when you were growing up and did these things, did you find a positive impact on your faith journey? Like Lauren, did you find you were able to focus on mass more when you were an altar server?
Yeah, for sure. I think I was, sitting much more still when I was up on the altar. I did enjoy doing that. And then the other way I got involved at St. Catherine's was volunteering at their Carnival of Fun every summer. And when I was in high school, I would do all 5 nights, and they're 5-hour shifts.
Whoa.
So it's kind of long. Yeah, I think I was mostly motivated by a National Honor Society to get those
the hours.
in. Yeah, but it was a fun time, and
Do they still do that Carnival of Fun?
they still do it.
Do they
yeah.
really? It's
And
like-
I still volunteer when I can.
Like rides and stuff?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
A fair?
Exactly.
Very
Yep.
cool.
And I
Very
just
cool.
find those kinds of things make you feel more connected, right?
That's how you get to know people.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I always felt like there's some familiar faces at St. Catherine's, but I wasn't really part of the community. Didn't know people that well. So doing those things helps a little bit, right? You meet a few more people. But then just coming to St. John's and all the young adult things that you run and everything that's going on here, it's totally been a transformation to feel a part of the community, and I do think that makes a big difference.
So now as an adult, I mean, all 3 of you are obviously very active in our young adult ministry, but tell us a little bit more about your involvement in your parish right now. Like, Paul, I know you help with a young adult ministry called C4C.
Yeah, Crossroads for Christ. It's a Connecticut-based, although it's spanning outside of Connecticut, ministry that's for young adults and trying to create Eucharistic-centered young adult communities throughout Connecticut and then eventually throughout the United States. So we started the Stamford chapter about 3 years ago. We're talking in fall of 2020 right now, so about 3 years ago. And it's been great. It's been growing. And so every Wednesday or Thursday night, get 15 to 20 young adults together just to talk about the faith. And then we go to adoration each of those nights.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Have you've had at least one marriage out of that?
Yeah, and several across the state. One in Stamford.
One in Stamford.
Yep.
Hoping for a few more.
Yeah.
Good place to find your vocation.
No pressure.
Yeah, really. I know you're still involved in the choir, Javier.
Yeah, I'm kind of going to 2 different parishes right now. I go to the Basilica on Sundays, and then on Wednesday nights I go to St. Joseph's / Sacred Heart, because they just merged with Sacred Heart up in Georgetown. And so that's where I chant on Wednesday nights at Missa Cantata. And then with St. John's, through Catholic Adventures, Diane and I started the Bible study series. So we did the Bible timeline, which we went through the entire Bible in, I don't know how many months, 6 months or so, 7 months. And then we did the Gospel of Matthew, which we were about 3 chapters away when we started recording the podcasts.
Oh, and no, so we haven't finished it, yeah.
We haven't finished
it. We had to go to Zoom anyway for COVID, so.
Yeah, exactly. And so whenever you presented this opportunity, I was like, well, there was only like 5 or 6 of us doing it at that point in time. Anyways, even though that's fine because it's kind of like a small group, but I don't know. I got to finish it. I felt unaccomplished with that. I got to finish that one. And just doing this podcast series with y'all and then the videos that we're doing that will air at some point.
At some point, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a Restless video series coming soon.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. But so how is these, these things have really been very impactful, I know, in your own faith journey, for all of you, really, getting involved in your parish.
I would say that for myself, I'm more of a participant, not so much a leader like these two and Diane are, but I think that's just as important, right?
Yeah.
And even growing up, I can remember, every so often there'll be some kind of a breakfast, right? After Mass, like pancakes for this or donuts, right? And I think my family, at least, and probably most families, it's like, oh, let's just get home, But I'm always someone that would be like, yeah, I want to go to that, right? Like, that'd be great. And all these different initiatives need people to show up.
Right.
So I think even just that, like, I don't know. And I'll sometimes see, I think people, especially young adults, might be afraid to do something on their own, like to go without a friend.
Yeah.
But it's okay, so I was traveling once in Nashville and I went to Mass there before I came home because it, fit my schedule. And what do you know? They had like a potluck dinner after the Mass. And so I went because I had time, like before my flight. I know, right?
That's awesome.
They opened it up to everybody. Of course, I didn't know anyone, but I kind of stood in line, I got some food. And then there was a really friendly couple, that I sat down with and chatted, and it was a really nice experience,
That's awesome.
So, I don't know. I think sometimes you got to put yourself out there, maybe go and you don't know anyone, but if it is your parish or it's your friends running something like these guys, just show up, check it out.
Yeah, I think what I've learned is that you do have to there has to be one or maybe a few people that do build it, and they will come, and they always come. I remember when I moved to Brooklyn right after college. This was 8 years ago. Yeah, 8 years ago. And I didn't know anyone in Brooklyn. I knew people in Manhattan, but Brooklyn and Manhattan people, they don't go between the boroughs. You kind of stay in your own borough.
Oh, really?
Kind of, yeah. Manhattan people just don't go to Brooklyn. That's more of what it is.
Well,
but there was a really great church there. It was Queen of All Saints, and it was kind of a more traditional church. And there was this great young adult group there that I was about 40 minutes by subway from there. But just one night I emailed the person who was the contact, and I said, and they were doing the Bible timeline, Jeff Caven's Bible timeline. Nice. And I said, well, I know how to do that. So Sunday night I went up there and knew one, and some of those people are still some of my best friends. So
that's awesome.
You just have to go. If you're not involved, it's you can just go. People are generally welcoming.
It's funny. When I was a teenager, for 2 weeks, I decided to stop going to Mass. Instead, I wanted to check out other Protestant churches. I was just curious as to what they were. And so, so I went, and I was blown away by how friendly and welcoming they were. Partly because their congregation was about 100 people, so they knew if a newcomer would walk in the door,
Yeah.
like, oh, we've never seen your face before, but they would purposely go up and introduce themselves to you, and I was like, whoa, like, because my Catholic upbringing is you go into church and you don't look at anybody else, you sit in your own pew by yourself with your little cocoon. I was very taken aback, and I think we should bring some of that to the Catholic faith. Is like, as Lauren was saying, like, put yourself out there and go and like talk to the person that you sit behind for 30 years.
Yeah.
And never learn their name. You know.
I had the same experience, and I think that's one of the things that I learned about going to an evangelical church. Just the fact of that emphasis on we're not supposed to do life on our own, right? We're supposed to have community. We're supposed to have a Christian community around us to keep us away from things of this world, to keep us, grounded, to keep, people that we can share our personal lives with, people that can pray for us, people that we can grow in our faiths with and stuff. And we have so many of those in our parishes. Our parish is humongous. And there's so many people there, and there's so many young adults, and we're not meant to do this on our own.
And I bet there's a lot of young adults that are not connected to anyone else there.
Exactly.
That come as solos.
That's what I was going to get at. And they just kind of go to mass, and then that's all they do, right? And so what Lauren said was totally right. You don't have to be a leader of any organization. It's just being involved in and meeting people, meeting other people that are growing in their faiths, that are going through the same struggles that you're going through and stuff, and people that you're going to grow with. And like Paul said, that people that are going to become your best friends, I mean, that's something we need. I mean, even Jesus himself needed his three,
Yeah.
If he needed his three.
Peter, James, and John.
Exactly. If he needed his three, we definitely need our 3 or 5 or 10,
Yeah.
And so.
Definitely. That's so true. Javier right now lives in a house with some of his brothers. In fact, they call themselves the Brothers.
The Pershing Brothers, because we're on Pershing Street.
Pershing Brothers.
Want to stop by 189 Pershing.
Don't send him hate mail.
Yeah, please.
But I mean, how awesome is that to be able to live with brothers who are seeking Christ together, with you?
It's amazing. I mean, like the opportunities to pray together, the opportunities to talk about our struggles together. I mean, any time we're dealing with something we want to share with each other, we know that we're in a safe space, and we know that it'll turn into a prayer one way or another.
Yeah.
We know that the things that we see around at our house are encouraging, that are positive, they're things of God. I mean, like, there's no debauchery going on, there's no excessive drinking going on and stuff, and it's like,
you party till 7:30 in the morning, but you're all sober the whole time.
That is true. That's what we did.
I asked Javier this past weekend, like, what'd you do? He's like, well, I go to sleep at 7:30 a.m. Dang, man.
We had a poem reading thing going on for like an hour and a half at the house. So.
A poem reading.
Yep.
That is awesome.
Some of the guys from Saint Joseph's Sacred Heart. I should call it Sacred Heart now, because that's where we go. They just started reading poems, and they're very good at reading. I mean, our choir director David Hughes, he read a poem that was about 10-15 minutes long, and he read it as if he would have read something that was a minute long. He read it so well, so beautifully,
wow.
And that was at like 6 a.m.
That's I know Paul has that same kind of community in his house.
Yeah, I mean, I lived across the hall from a theology teacher, so we have a different type of relationship than I think you all do. We have very deep intellectual conversations about Catholic philosophy pretty much nightly, and that's how we connect. And we're also both musicians, and so we play music too in the garage, literally in the garage. So
garage band.
It is, yeah, and so that's a lot of fun.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's been great.
So you find that community where you can, and did you I guess you all met each other through the parish, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's where I met John and Wojtek, and I guess that's where you met
Paul and
yeah, I mean,
whoever else is in there with Paul.
Yeah, there was a big so in Stamford they had this thing for a couple of years called the Summer Splash, which was a big young adult gathering down by the beach, and that's where a lot of us actually met.
That's right.
Over time.
That's pretty cool.
I think the last one was in 2015.
We got to bring that back. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like fun.
It was fun. Yeah.
Nice. I find though that especially like nowadays, a lot of young adults don't like to join organizations. Like things like the Knights of Columbus are struggling to find young adult men to kind of fill their ranks. Do you find that to be the case, that young adults just don't they're not joiners?
They certainly don't want commitment.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's what it is. I think I do think they'll show up the first, second time, and then a lot of people just don't come back.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think it's just it's what Paul said. It's this lack of commitment. Like I don't know if they feel like, they have something better to do. But the thing about it is you're not going to see the benefit of these things unless you continually show up.
Yeah.
That's where that's where this friendships. I mean,
one young adult group meeting is not going to form a friendship immediately. Like, you got to keep coming.
John Wojtek and I, about a year and change to volunteer at the same things and stuff, and then go to Faith on Tap at night to finally just say, like, we should all hang out one night. And then that was it. We hung out, and now we're best friends, and it's like, but it took a while. I first met them, and we weren't immediately best friends, I mean, and now they're my brothers, and I know they're going to be my brothers for life, so.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is that anything you join probably requires some perseverance, and not everything's going to be the most exciting thing ever, right? But if it's about your faith, it's probably to your benefit.
Yeah.
And like right now, I can say I started going to Endow, which is a women's study group on
Nice.
Wednesday nights, going over Humane Vitae.
Mm-hmm.
And, last week I was sitting there like, I might be over this, this part of the conversation that we just kind of got on a tangent, and like I had kind of decided in my own mind what I thought like the moral answer was, but people kept going back and forth and whatever it was. We were kind of off topic, but yeah. So again, like this week, I'll have to decide, yes, that I want to go, right? Because no one's making me go. I'm not paying for this, right? Like,
Right.
there's no one holding me there, really. It's up to me. Like, do I want to learn about this more? Do I want to grow in my faith? Like, these are all very faithful women, and I can tell that I'm benefiting from hearing their stories and their experiences and all of that, right?
And
but
hopefully finding some deep friendships,
that's another part, yeah.
Yeah.
Getting to know other people. So,
Awesome. Yeah, so definitely the commitment piece, I think, is so important. Yeah. When we come back from our break, we're going to talk more about how parishes, perhaps that don't have, a vibrant young adult community, can be welcoming to young adults. And welcome back to Restless. We've been talking today about how to get involved in your parish, which for a lot of young adults can be kind of a strange situation. And particularly if you go to a parish that does not have a lot of young adults, because I know that I've certainly looked around at some parishes and I've been like, wow, I'm the youngest one here by 40 years. Or, you got little kids, but you're not, like, there's no single young adults who are kind of in your situation. And I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that, certainly not at the current parish where we're at, but I remember one time when I was out in Nebraska doing some mission work, we walked into this parish. We'd go around to different parishes doing vacation Bible school in the morning. I was in college, and we do faith formation in the morning, and in the evening we do youth groups for the high schoolers. And we walked into this one parish, and the four of us college students were the youngest ones there by 40 years easily. And the priest was so boring that he was falling asleep in his own homily. Oh. And the music sounded like a cat being run over by a semi-trailer. It was really rough. It's really rough. And on the way out, I was very glad that, a friend of mine turned to me, and he was joking, but he said, I'm glad Jesus is alive, because no one in that church was.
Ooh.
But
ouch.
But, I mean, some people can find that as their parish experience, right? You go in there, you're like, this is not a vibrant place. So what do you do in that situation if your parish is not conducive to kind of what we're talking about?
I think, if you're interested in, there's a couple different things. You can start something.
Yeah.
You could take the initiative. And if you're not that type of person, then, I think another good thing that you can do is that a lot of people are very intimidated to, become friends or at least sociable with their priest or pastor. So that's a great first step, because you may not even know that something is going on because it might not be in the bulletin or whatever. So, or, that priest may know other young adults that are in the same situation, and it's a great, way of just getting connected, just that one small step.
That's true. Invite your priest over for dinner.
Well,
he likes salmon and potatoes. Oh, wait.
Right.
Sorry.
Well, yeah, Father did just look at me and said you should invite your...
Well, Father Joseph...
We did have an episode about how Paul cooks, but that was earlier on.
I was even just thinking, step one could be to just try to get to know your priest, right? If everyone's elderly or not of your nature, the priests are supposed to be there for us, right? For the parish and to foster our growth in the faith. So hopefully they would be open to it. I don't know. Some priests, I think, are more shy or reserved or may not be comfortable, but even just starting a conversation, right, with the priest, maybe could lead to something else, like what Paul was saying. You get to start something at your parish because you probably need their approval. So if you build that relationship first, then you get to know someone. Then I feel like going to St. John's, knowing you, and before you knowing Father Andy, and like knowing Father Al, it makes such a difference in my experience at Mass.
Probably a lot more personal.
Yeah, it just
Right.
And even like I mentioned earlier, I was an altar server for 5 years, but I didn't actually have a relationship with the priest, and he never learned my name. You know, he could see me today, and he doesn't know me.
That's too bad.
Yeah, right. I don't, but I think it's just his personality, and that's fair. That's who he is. But
I do remember I was 16 when a priest finally learned my name, and I thought it was the biggest honor in the world.
You were 16. Wow.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was an altar server too for many years, and the priest never bothered having any
That's very
conversation
different.
at all.
Yeah, no, we had a very good priest at my church that knew most of the parishioners. We had, I don't know, the church held like 1,200 people or something, and he still knew most of the parishioners.
Wow,
Yeah, and all the altar servers.
that's
for
a
sure.
gift.
That's
That's
amazing.
good.
Yeah.
Because I can say as a priest, Lauren, that when I first get to a parish, I'll announce, please introduce yourself to me on the way out of Mass. So I'll get 3,000 names that first weekend. And then after that, no one will introduce themselves. And I'm like, I only retained 3 of you. I don't remember who you are. So yeah, that's huge. I would love for more of my parishioners to stop after Mass and just be like, hey, do you remember me? I'm John. and this is, I think that'd be really cool. And I appreciate that, because a lot of times people will call me up and be like, I want to get married. I want a baptism. And I'm like, who are you?
right.
Who are you? But it means so much more when you've established that rapport. And
Yeah, I think going back to your question, there were the two parishes that I went to in Houston when I first moved to the States. They were both kind of like that. One of them was actually just exactly the way that you described yours. The priest was super monotone. I mean, like very monotone. His homilies were very short, and like it was, people were falling asleep. Like even the decoration in the church was kind of like, I don't know. It almost invited you to fall asleep. Everything was kind of sad in there, and there wasn't
they provide free pillows on the way in.
yeah, something like that. And there wasn't a young adult group, And then the same thing with my other parish. They have a lot of stuff for like little kids, but there's nothing for. And I think that's something that the parishes need to have, and it's not on the priest per se. I mean, the priest might not see the value of it, but someone that's young that's going there might see the value of it from another parish that they went to or something. And like, it's very important because we have so many young adults that are leaving our church today, and I think some of them are leaving it because they're just not involved.
Mm-hmm.
They're not involved. They're just going to Mass on Sundays. They're not really getting anything out of it. They don't really know what the Mass is all about anyways. They might not even believe in, the true presence in the Eucharist. And then on top of that, they're not involved at all. And so it's like, then they just, I guess I'll just go during Christmas and
Yeah.
that's it.
Bishop Caggiano said one time that belonging leads to believing.
Right.
So that was a good point, When you feel like you're welcomed there, then you'll kind of,
Your faith grows.
then your faith will grow, yeah.
Yeah, I remember one of the most touching moments that I still remember is that we had when I was an altar boy. I think I was in high school. It must have been. It was Archbishop Mansell had come to our church. I think it was like some anniversary of our parish, but in any case, he had this. It was great because we all went to the rectory beforehand, and it had. He met all everyone who's doing all the Eucharistic ministers and all the altar servers and whatever, and he memorized each person's name and didn't write it down. And then after Mass, he thanked everybody by name.
Wow.
That's got to be a charism of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, right. And it was and he thanked every person in the choir too, by name.
Oh my gosh.
And I talked to other people afterwards, and that's one of his gifts is that he can remember 50, 60 names at a time.
That is wow.
Yeah. So, and that's
Wow.
you really feel okay, you mean something, even though I learned later that this is something that he does normally, but it's just really special. Or even being part of doing every Mass or Good Friday service during the Triduum, being on the altar for each of those for those 4 days, is even Easter Sunday too. It's that's really special, and you
Yeah.
really feel belonging. That's how he hooked me.
Funny, I was remembering the story of John Paul II, who I think had that same gift of knowing
Yes.
everybody's name. And I guess somebody was telling me that he went to meet the Pope, and he was so honored. He's like, Holy Father, please pray for my wife. She's sick. And he's like, thank you, yes, yes. And he goes down the line, and about like 2 years later, he comes back and meets the Pope, and the Pope takes the initiative and says, how was your wife?
Oh, wow.
I'm like, whoa, that's an incredible memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I heard a story too of him meeting, or somebody going up to him and, telling him that they, basically introducing himself. And I can't remember who it was, but the guy must have been a young priest at the time, and they had met back before he was a priest, the Pope. And he told him, he was like, no, we've met before. We met on this year. We talked, and the guy was like, no, we never met, And then he was like, come back next time when you've remembered.
Wow.
And so the guy came back and said, yeah, no, in fact, we met that year exactly when you said it and stuff. And he was like, this is exactly what we talked about. And he remembered the conversation. And that's a Pope.
That's
How
a great...
many people does he meet?
Yeah, exactly. That's a grace of the Holy Spirit, that for sure. But, one of the things I hear a lot as a priest is that people tell me, oh, the church needs to blank. The church needs to have better music. The church needs to do more for young people. The church needs to evangelize. The church needs to have this program or that program. And I don't know if you've ever said that, but if you have, my always reaction is, well, who's the church? It's not just the priests. It's the regular, ordinary folks in the pews. So what do you think the church needs to do or to improve, to make kind of the experience of just the community, the worship, to be better? And how can you kind of get into that?
I think that, what makes, just speaking from our experience locally here in Stamford, Connecticut, is St. John the Evangelist Church is, I've heard this, I think Monsignor said it, I think, back in the day, and I think Father Al did too. It's like people come to St. John's because we do Catholic well. And I think it's really powerful when there's an unwavering, holding to the traditions and an unwavering reverence and all those things that really play into it. I think that really speaks to a lot of people, and especially young adults, because a lot of young adults want, we want the best craft beer. We want the best wine, we want the best food that's farm to table, that's authentic. And I think that when you have a really authentic, Catholic expression, I think that really speaks to young adults. And you see that in churches, whether it's St. Canchas in Chicago or other places around the country, when it's a really authentic Catholic expression, it really speaks to young adults that are looking for that.
But that's tough then if you live in, somewhere in Kansas and you have one parish within a 30-mile radius and it doesn't have that. What can you do about it?
In that case, it's tough. But where we are, there are so many different parishes. So, I was surprised. I went to St. Catherine's for 5 years after graduating from college without any kind of community, like you mentioned, and it's mostly families there. And then I went over to Stanford for Faith on Tap and instantly started making all these Catholic friends my age. And these two parishes are probably 10 minutes apart. Yeah. And I was actually pretty angry that St. Catherine's wasn't sharing what was going on in Stanford. Right? Or like St. Mary's in Central Greenwich. Are they sharing what they're doing? Because I later heard they have a young adult group. Are they sharing that with St. Catherine's? Or St. Roch's? And right? And I understand every parish is kind of its own entity and they all have a lot going on, but they're not so interconnected, and I kind of wish that these kinds of initiatives could be amplified more, so that they could reach people, because there are people missing out. But we're just fortunate, I guess, here. And if I imagine if you bounce around within a city like Stanford, you'll probably find, a young community, right? Because it's a city.
Well, I think you make a great point, is that all parishes can't be all things to all people.
Right. And I think one of the things that parishes do need, especially nowadays, is education. And it doesn't fall on the priest, like you said. We are the church, right? Somebody to step up and say, there needs to be a class that teaches the people what the Mass is. There needs to be a class that teaches the people how to pray the Mass. There needs to be a class that teaches the people, young adults, theology of the body, newlyweds, theology of the body, kids, theology of the body. There's so many topics, so many things that our faith has to offer that people don't even know about. I didn't even know what theology of the body was a couple of months ago. I didn't even know that the Mass was a prayer a couple of months ago. There's so many things that, and I think our young adults or even people that are older, I've had conversations with people that are 50, 60 years old, and And I tell them that the Mass is not about this, not about that. The Mass is a prayer. And they're like, the Mass is not a prayer. And I'm like, Mass is the highest form of prayer. And to me, it's just saddening because it's like, I'm not here to lecture you. I'm just here to tell you like what I've just learned. But you should have learned this a long time ago. It's not on you. It's somebody in the parish that knew
dropped
about
the ball.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, we just circling back to what we discussed with before is if you live in that parish that's, 30 miles from the next parish and you're finding that there's something lacking, I mean, that's when you go and you do something about it to some extent, even if it's just talking to the priest, getting to know them, even if it's help with the flowers or something, during Easter, something to just get involved and make it meaningful for, if there's no one else that you're, that's like you, that at least it's more meaningful for you. And then maybe you'll find somebody else.
And you can find great friends that are older too,
That's true.
Some of the most rewarding relationships I have are with elderly people. So
Like Father Al.
yeah, Father Al's 88.
Cannot
And
believe he's
we're
88.
we're very close friends.
Oh, and I befriended a couple older than me through RCIA,
Oh, that's true.
Bob and Carol. Right, we just met, and I was just in that class to support my friend, but I learned so much. Like Javier is saying, I did not know the faith at all. Then I was sitting in that class and listening to you, Father Joseph, and you're just dropping all this knowledge on me, and I'm like, where has this been my whole life? And RCIA is open to everyone.
It is, yeah,
right?
if anyone wants to dive deeper.
So I'm sure people hear that announcement and they're like, oh yeah, I don't need that. No, you need that. Like you should go in and sit in, right? Like, especially here in Stanford, Father Joseph will just wow you because you're just phenomenal, I think, as a teacher.
Thank you. Here's the $20 for that endorsement.
No, but like that's just a program that's offered in most parishes every year.
It is true,
correct?
yeah.
Right, but
it is true.
how many are taking advantage of it? So
And there's a lot of other adult Bible studies that are around, adult faith formation opportunities. A lot of people think it ends in 8th grade. You've done,
Right.
done your faith formation. No, you're not. So much more to learn. I'm still learning as a priest.
and then the last thing is turn to media online, like a podcast or a video series.
Right.
That's true. It's a
a
good way to
be
learn.
connected.
Absolutely, be connected.
Lots of
digitally.
Like this one.
There's endless amounts of free education on YouTube.
Yeah, it's true. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Here's the challenge that I laid down before you today. The challenge is get involved in your parish. That could mean as simple as sitting down with your priest and talking with him, getting to know him. It could mean turning to the person in the pew next to you and introducing yourself. It could mean coming to a new event that you've never come to before. Maybe it's searching one out. Maybe it means going to another parish next door that has something for young adults or for other older adults or whoever's you're searching for. But it's out there. It's out there, and we can benefit from it. Thanks so much for joining us on Restless. You can find us on Veritas Catholic Network, 1350 AM. And you can also find us on the web at podbean.com and wherever else you get your podcasts. And Javier's going to laugh, but I'm going to say it anyway. See you next time.